A rewrite of immigration enforcement policies released this week by the White House looks to target any undocumented immigrant violating the law, including traffic violations, for possible deportation. Meanwhile, a state house committee here in Colorado killed a bill late on Thursday that would have allowed public officials of so-called sanctuary cities to be held accountable for crimes and damages committed by undocumented immigrants. Patty, I think most folks looking at this bill at the state house knew it was going nowhere. The Democrats have the House. It was a Republican-sponsored bill. But were you surprised to even see it, or were you surprised by the tenor of this bill from the environment that we have right now?
I am not surprised by anything anymore. When we look at the comments that are put on stories, you cannot imagine how hateful sides are getting. Both sides are getting. The discussion is really bad. So something like this coming up wasn't a huge surprise, because that's the kind of hateful attitudes we're hearing. That it was also shoved aside so quickly was not a surprise, because there was no way public officials were going to be held accountable for it. The debate is continuing over what's a sanctuary city, what isn't a sanctuary city, who's a bad immigrant, who isn't a bad immigrant. Just again today, Donald Trump is doubling down. He's going to get rid of the bad hombres. He's going to build the wall for sure. But what exactly is the bad action? Is it going to be a speeding violation? Is it going to be not having your car registered? That's what is really concerning now. I don't think anyone has a big problem with deporting really bad hombres, but who's going to define it?
Craig, what do you think the effect of this focus on immigration so early and fairly intently by the Trump administration is going to have on Republicans in states like Colorado, maybe states like Texas, where you have a far more diverse population and far more population of constituents to speak to?
I don't think most people like sanctuary cities, and I think there's a political disconnect. Some of our leaders, like Michael Hancock and John Hickenlooper, don't appreciate that the average person doesn't like the fact that there's no cooperation between state and city officials and the federal government. And we've had a couple of situations in this city. Look, I work in the criminal justice system. For a long time, we understand that if you plead guilty to a crime involving moral turpitude, you're subject to deportation and removal. Nothing has changed, but there's going to start to be enforcement. You have this kid, Ever Baez, a 19-year-old identified by ICE as a Mexican national and a gang member. He got caught stealing cars and weapons offenses. ICE said, don't release him without notifying us. Denver Sheriff's gives 20 minutes notice with the facts, and then he's accused now of going out to a light rail station and murdering a Denverite, a 32-year-old man named Tim Cruz. Then you have another guy, a Honduran repeat criminal, Norlana Estrada Reyes, who killed Karina Pulek, a 28-year-old lawyer at 13th and Broadway, and then left his car, and he finally got caught. This is aggravating people in our community, and we don't want it. And now Denver's in the eye of the storm, called out by Bill O'Reilly, called out by Greg Gutfeld. Michael Hancock's video saying we welcome everybody. No, we don't welcome repeat criminal offenders who have committed crimes of moral turpitude. By Donald Trump talking tough and the legislature talking tough, we'll see less illegal immigration, and in my mind, that's a good thing. Legal immigration good, illegal immigration bad.
Joey, what was the reaction on Capitol Hill to the bill that we talked about that was killed on Thursday, but certainly I'm sure it set some tones throughout the Capitol?
Yeah, it set some political tones. You know, Craig made a lot of good points. Unfortunately, most of them are irrelevant to this bill, because this bill was about holding legislators and holding city council members. And, you know, are we going to start arresting people for how they voted on a city council 2 years ago based on a crime somebody else committed? That's an unworkable law. It's also an unconstitutional law. Representative Mike Foote, who is he's a deputy district attorney in Boulder County, and he's one of the most brilliant legislators in the building. And he took the bill's sponsor, Dave Williams, to task. I told Dave this morning that Michael spanked him like a legislative child, and he didn't like that very much. But that's exactly what happened. And we had law professors coming in. There was a law professor from DU who came in and said, if one of my students turned this in, I would not only fail the student, but I would reevaluate the whole program, because obviously we're not teaching people to understand the Constitution. it was a cynical bill, and I told Representative Williams today, if it had been a Democratic House instead of a Republican House instead of a Democratic House, this bill still wouldn't have passed. I've talked to Republicans who said this was a bad bill because what happened was people came in and made a lot of racist remarks, and they may not be Republicans, maybe they are Republicans, but either way, that sticks to their party. I don't think we'll see this bill again in the Colorado legislature unless Representative Williams wants to serve it up for cannon fodder again next year.
Noel, with your background in criminal justice, it seems that there is a gap. I don't think there's going to be many people who would argue at Craig that folks that are here illegally, that are gang members, or potential murderers, people like that, that do people. I think unanimously people would want those folks deported. But there's a big difference between that and maybe somebody who was on his dad's back as he came across 30 years ago, wasn't documented, and gets pulled over for speeding. Is there a chasm there that the criminal justice system needs to address?
Yeah, I mean, this is a complicated issue. Everybody has constitutional protections in this country, whether you're a U.S. citizen or a guest of our country. Those are in place for everyone. I talked to Denver Sheriff Patrick Furman about this week because they are in the eye of the storm. And the situation at a jail is very fluid. Most of the people that are there have not been convicted of anything. They've merely been charged. They're entitled to post bonds. The Sheriff's Department doesn't always know exactly when someone's going to come up with the money. And once they do and they post their bond, the Sheriff's Department says, we cannot hold them indefinitely waiting for an ICE agent to come to our jail and pick them up. And as soon as we know what time they're going to be out and what day, we tell ICE. It's not always, 24 hours notice. And on the other end, ICE agents are limited as well, and they've got priorities, and maybe they don't have the time to go get somebody in the next hour at the Denver jail. And so there's, it's just very fluid, and it evolves, and it is complicated. Now, if somebody has a federal criminal warrant for them, just like if there's an arrest warrant out of Arapahoe County and they're in the Denver jail, they run them through NCIC, they see that warrant, they will hold them for ICE.